it can be quite daunting for example, new young directors who come to a piece with as much gravitas as, for example, using two Robbins shows as, you know, West Side and Fiddler on the Roof, or anything from that kind of golden age, which is treated with quite a lot of reverence now, understandably so.
Understandably, yes.
And so what would you say is something that you would say to any director who, it doesn't even have to be Fiddler on the Roof, it could be a Rodgers and Hammerstein, it could be anything, who's kind of sitting in front of the book for something like this for the first time and going, okay, how do I go about taking this leap? What do I do?
Well, the first thing you do is a negative, is a don't do. What you don't do is go to YouTube. You stay away from YouTube and you imagine yourself not having any access to anything contemporary like Google or anything like that. You stay away and you spend your first portion, weeks, whatever, days, weeks, hours, depending on how fast you have to develop your concept. And you read the play, read the play, read the play, read the play, read the play. And every subsequent reading, you're going to start pulling out things. You're going to grab on to a theme. You're going to latch on to a piece of action. You're going to latch on and identify with a particular character. And every time you reread the play, that's what's going to happen. And you start, you know, and if you can read it as a hard copy and dog ear it and scribble on it and circle and highlight, that's your beginning of your Bible. That's the beginning of how you're going to formulate, how do I tell this story? Why, I always ask, it's strangely Jewish, but I always ask, what are the four questions that need answers in order to direct a musical or a play? One, what makes this story relevant for an audience today? Two, what can my passion for the material add to the proceedings? Three, what are the essential elements I must have to tell the story? And that is about action and relationships. And then four, who is my audience? And how can I illuminate this story for them? And as a regional theater director, that's one of the most important questions that I ask of the material, because each theater that I work at has a particular DNA, a particular demographic, a particular enjoyment level of certain kinds of work, a particular disdain for certain kinds of work. I really like to get to know my audience. And because I've been working for so long, I've had the opportunity to really cultivate relationships with theaters around the country so that my work really speaks to their audience when it comes time to do the performance.
That's
so
awesome.
those are the fourth. The fifth, if we added a fifth question, would be, where am I doing this? What is my venue? And how much money do I have to do it?
Yeah. What is the budget? How mad can I go with this?
Yeah, exactly. Is it a basement with, you know, a passion and a plank? Or is it a 80-foot proscenium at the Muni Theater in Forest Park with an audience of 12,000 people? So,
And a week to rehearse.
Yeah, and a week to rehearse. So it's really important that I understand that, my designers understand that, because it really affects design. The way you design at the Muni is not the same at Maltz Jupiter Theater, because Maltz is very intimate, 600 seats. So design can be subtle, but at the Muni, 12,000 seats, design has to be, you know, brought out. And those are things you learn on the job, and you learn from your amazing colleagues, all the sets, costumes, lighting designers that you work with. And now add into that projections or puppets or, you know, any other element that you can think of, musician theater, you know, it all has to be orchestrated on the stage for that venue and for that audience. So I take really great pride in being able to do that for those audiences.
And let's kind of talk about the one side that we haven't really broached on, which is weird, which is the actors, which is the cast.
Oh, them.
Oh,
I
them.
love them. I
That
do.
them lot, the great
Them
unwashed.
lot. Yeah,
Um,
the great unwashed.
so, firstly, going back to Fiddler on the Roof,
Yeah.
how did they react? When you started speaking to the actors, I don't know whether you told them in the audition process or at what point you spoke to them. How did they react when you said, actually, that Fiddler on the Roof that you think you're doing, that's gone, that's out the window.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
doing this Fiddler on the Roof. How did they react?
Well, because even at auditions, I'm always in service to the narrative of the story, and so I shared that with the company um, as they came in, and I knew the wedding dance was going to require male athleticism, but not in the same way as the bottle dance, but a different, and the men were going to have an opportunity to dance and the women, and it was going to be a more shared experience. So I did say to the guys, you don't need knee pads. We're not doing the bottle dance. And I saw a few people like, what? But the folks that I cast and the company that I created were very excited to tell the story from a different point of view. And I'm not sure I had a lot of Fiddler veterans. Do you know what I mean? I don't think a lot of my cast had done Fiddler. Robert Pekoff, who played Tevye, had done Perchik. So every time he had a scene with Perchik, he had a little sort of deja vu body, whoa, where am I? Who am I? Because he connects so deeply with characters when he creates them. So, but even with Perchik, I'm an exhaustive researcher, and I saw beautiful pictures of Sholem Aleichem, the original writer of these stories. And I said to Gail Baldoni, the costume designer, I want Perchik to look like him.
Wow.
I wanted him to look like the author. So we gave him the same kind of facial hair and haircut as Sholem Aleichem at his age. And so those little, what I call grace notes, are so particular to the work you're doing in your moment in time.
Amazing. Again, looking at the casting process and things like this, when you're working with a situation like this, where you're not casting a carbon copy of an established show,
Right.
you are assembling a cast to break a ledge. What is it you look for in the actors, where in the casting that goes, you're the type of person I need to do this?
It was very important to me that the daughters, Anne Muddle and Perchik, were very young. So beautiful young woman, Emily Renasco, who actually came up through the Maltz Jupiter training school, I cast as Chava. She reminded me of me when I was her age. She had long blonde hair, and she was a dancer. I could never sing, but she sings beautifully, and a young actress, and she was about 16 at the time. And a local young man played Muddle, and he was about 18. And then the women that I cast out in New York to play Seidel and Chava were in their early 20s and very petite and looked very young. Because Tevye wasn't 85 years old. Tevye is probably 40. He's got 5 children. He's got the 3 main daughters and 2 little ones. He's about 40. So Robert was just a little over that, and Tia maybe just a little over that, but they gave the sense of this being a young family, because I believe then the danger and the stakes are they have their whole lives ahead of them. They're not at the end of their life making this change. They're in the prime of their life making this change. And so it was important for me to have a very youthful cast in the children, in the daughters. And then the supporting characters, I wanted really full body, bigger than life. Yenta, the matchmaker, and the butcher, Laser
Laser
Wolf,
Wolf.
and all the, I wanted a big, I wanted some age and great and gravitas and life experience. And then everybody else, the rabbi was amazing. Jay Garcia played the rabbi. Jay Garcia is about 5'4", and we made him up to look like he was 90 with a big white beard, which is what my grandfather had. I have pictures from my family that also I showed to the costume designer and said, this is what my great-grandfather looked like. That's what the rabbi should look like. And Jay is a dancer. So I had this old man come over to Seidel and hand her the end of the handkerchief that he was going to dance with her. And then he started dancing with such light and such energy that you thought, this wedding is a mitzvah for this man. A blessing. This man is so happy to have made this wedding happen. He's dancing and exhausted after, 8 bars or whatever it was. So the cast really got their moments to shine in different ways than they may have expected before they started working with me. But certainly our peddler, didn't imagine himself being the peddler at the wedding. And I said, no, I want the audience to make relationships with all the characters and know who they are, so that when they have to leave on a tefka, their heartstrings are being tugged at. And that was one of the most beautiful sequences. And Paul Miller, my lighting designer, lit that so magically with like little lights in the houses going out. And I love a last chord that rings and just keeps going.
No button, just let it
just
hang.
Let it hang. And as you're fading, and Paul choreographed these little lights in the remaining houses that were there, just to go out as the lights were getting dimmer, and the last little light went out. It was breathtaking. And it was seen by 600 times 7 performances a week for 3.5 weeks. And then it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? But it's such a beautiful show, and it's so thrilling to work on, because there's so much meat on its bones, there's just so much